Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your beverage or drink of choice, glass of red wine, a cup of tea, coffee maybe. Don't forget the Kool-Aid for the kids. Now call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your papa, and your grandpapa, your brothers and your sisters, your nieces and your nephews, your aunties and your nenen, your neighbor. Let them all know that Simon Says is on. Now, buckle up. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. So we have a little bit of updates, a little bit of current affairs, and of course, the meat of the matter. So the potatoes was good for something. After what happened at the parliament with the member refusing to accept the potatoes, and as a matter of fact, she said to them she didn't want the potatoes before the parliament, but they still came and gave it to her. Now, the parliament seen jolted attorney of law at law and former attorney general Cajetan Hood to come out and speak out on the Neelan matter. And today there is a coroner's inquest. Can you imagine that? We're almost a year, almost a year since it be coming down today, right? Since Neelan's death, that's a couple of months away, right? So there was a release from the RGPF dated Saturday, the 9th May 2026. And it says matter involving Neelan Franklin to proceed to coroner's inquest. The Royal Grenada Police Force, RGPF, informs the general public that investigations into the death of former Senator Neelan Franklin has been concluded. All of a sudden, there was an investigation and it's concluded. After they've been to the mom's house and told her there's no investigation, right? It's all done. It wasn't. It wasn't. Neelan's death wasn't. Well, should I say alleged murder, right? And so all of a sudden there was an investigation and it's being wrapped up. The Royal Grenada Police Force thanks the public for their patience and the cooperation throughout the investigation process. And source, Office of the Commissioner of Police, and they give you the numbers to contact, the usual on there. So we're getting somewhere for now, right? I want to ask and probe a little bit into what's going on with the GPC, the Grenada Postal Corporation, right? The public, the people need to know the status of the Postal Corporation. The Grenada Postal Corporation, I mean, some people don't even know where it is at the moment, right? And for persons, I have had complaints from customers who've visited the Postal Corporation out there at the stadium to go to collect the little box and so forth. It's taking them 4 to 5 hours to do so, right? And they complain that the customer service is low down and dirty. Low down and dirty. out there at the stadium. Now, as I understand it, they're closing 2 days per week now. No notice. So if you get there and that's one of the days they're closed, they close. If you come from Mars, they're not attending to you, come back whenever because they close. Members of the staff members are complaining about the deputy manager, deputy manager. I believe that's the person who is really doing the work for Randall while he's mascotting for NBC. They actually got a manager to manage him. That individual apparently is bullying workers. I mean, just treating the staff really badly. And they are complaining about that. We need an update on the building, on the carronage. Are we still paying rent for that building or Postal Corporation? When I say we, I mean the people of Grenada. But let's say the Postal Corporation. Is the Postal Corporation paying rent or lease on that building on the carronage? I understand it was some $40,000. The work had to stop. I guess money ran out. They spent some in excess of $800,000 on the carronage there already. And so the work stopped. It's more than a year now. The work stopped and nothing is happening. Money spent as usual. Money wasted. Money's wasted, right? So what is going on in the building? Calling on the managing director of the GPC, Mr. Randall Robinson, and the chairman of the board of directors, Mr. Adrian Francis. Please tell us what is going on with the GPC. For years, the NDC had a rumor that the post office was belonging to Gregory Bowen. They came in, Randall was one of the ones on platforms. Even during the campaign, the 2022 campaign, he was saying that on platform. He came in, he got the job to manage the post office. And he never said nothing, no matter what the question is. Who owns the post office? He wouldn't say, right? But it meant the post office, the building may not have been in the best in the best condition, but the GPC itself was well run. Now, NDC mash it up. As per usual, they mash up the post office. And we can't seem to put it back together like Humpty Dumpty, right? We can't seem to put it back together. They had to move from the building. It was hazardous to the workers, health hazard to the workers. Totally agree. But can the government, just so they get the fancy place for the IMA, right? Couldn't they find some place for the post office to be under one roof and running as a normal? What is this? Also, they never came back to us as to the packages. Remember the US had banned small packages? What's that? Is that still the same? People do not know what is going on with the Postal Corporation. So we need to know. We really need to know. And speaking of the US, will someone in authority, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, please enlighten us on the visa issue, the visa ban? Now, I came across some correspondence notices from the USA to nationals of Grenada, right? Now, the first one here says notice to applicants. Nationals of Grenada applying for non-immigrant visa including those who are renewing, are required to attend an in-person interview with a consular office. So of course you have to go to Barbados. At one point you could have applied online. That is long gone. I don't think everybody has to go to Barbados now. Then there is another notice to applicants, and it reads, any citizen or nationals traveling on a Grenadian passport who is found otherwise eligible for a B1, B2 visa must post a bond of up to 15,000 USD before the visa can be issued. The visa bond is refundable if you respect the terms of your US visa. Now, we were told by the little one, Run Redhead, that that is not for everybody, and it was just something by the way, right? We are yet to hear from the Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, or the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Joseph Andel, on this matter. Now you're hearing they're asking for bond of up to 15,000 US dollars before the visa can be issued. Now this affects a whole lot of people, small businesses, or people who go to do business in the US and going to renew their visas, right? If you're like me, you've been holding a visa for 40 years without no trouble, no problem, right? Then there is this, the final one that says how the visa bond pilot program works. And it says, after the visa interview, a consular office will give you payment instructions with a direct link to PayGov if eligible. Now, pay the bond within 30 days. Receive a single entry visa for up to 3 months. So now we've been given single entry visa. So every time we have to travel, wish to travel to the US, we have to renew our visa. So when you get a visa now, it's for 30 days. Yes, 30 days. Receive a single entry visa valid for up to 3 months. So you have to pay the bond within 30 days, I'm sorry. And the visa is valid up to 3 months. Enter the United States at commercial airports of entry. Upon return home, bond will automatically cancel and the money refunded if all visa requirements are met, including not working in the United States and departing on time. So all of this is out there. They're speaking to Grenadian nationals, right? And that's a question we have to ask. Is this bond only for Grenadian nationals in the Caribbean? Because we have no other country have this so far that I know of, right? And if that is so, why? What is the reason why Grenadians have to go through this at this time? Tell us the status of our artists, soca and calypso artists, and was that the reason why the New York Spicemas launch was cancelled? We're hearing that they have revoked most of them, if not all of their visas of the soca artists. And we need some kind of somebody to talk to us as to what is happening out there between Grenada and the US and these visas. Now, one more question. What about the third country nationals? Remember the refugees saga? Was there a signed agreement? Did we accept refugees? Are there refugees on island as we speak? Because we had no clue that the Ghanaian nurses were already on island and that we had doctors from Nigeria. By the way, Cindy daughter in a press conference in one of the questions, she got backed up against the rope, and so she started to talk stupidness, and she come out and she tell us that the nurses from Ghana are already here, and so are the doctors, and so are doctors from Nigeria. Tell us what is going on, right? Now we all doing post cabinet briefing. Let us know. Tell us these things. Not only come and tell us about roads. Don't only come and tell us about the three, almost 4 years work projects that you all left by the wayside, that you are now trying to stuff into 6 months because there's an election, and wasting money. Bad botched up jobs are already visible, right? So we need someone to talk to us. Please tell us what is going on. Explain to us, especially this visa bond thing. Tell us what is going on. Now, the question was asked to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell on DMDPM on his attention to public concerns. What is it he attend to first, and what do you think is more important to attend to? Here was his answer.
Long-term planning.
Well, you're bowling quite a fast delivery right off the right off the bat. No, well, I would say there are a couple of things that can help with this. First, we were elected on a manifesto mandate campaign. There are things we said we wish to address. The public would have had the chance to listen to us, and given that the public would have chosen to put us into office, I think it's important, first and foremost, for us to go back to the manifesto, because it sort of becomes the Bible as a bit of a compass in terms of what we do. So the things we said that we would wish to accomplish via manifesto, I think is certainly one of the things that we would prioritize, both from an immediate and a medium to long-term perspective. So I can give two examples. We said we would pay the pensions, and although we didn't put a timeline, we paid it by November. And now it's standing that it was a 40-year battle, and everybody said, or certain people said, it will be the end of Grenada if the pensions were paid. We said we will pursue the building of a climate-smart teaching hospital, and we are doing so. Now, obviously, building a hospital or building any building is a more medium-term project, because you have to have land, you have to have the design, you have to have the financing, you then have to get into all of the tendering that goes with it, construction, even for a simple, straightforward building, much less a more custom-specific hospital. But these are examples, obviously, of wide-ranging healthcare and pensions, economic stability after one has worked. But we have to be able to, I think, distinguish between the urgent, which oftentimes is distracting, and the important. In my daily routine, everybody wants to speak to me. Everybody wants to have a meeting. Everybody sends a text message. Everybody wants you to return a call. And from everybody's perspective, their matter is urgent. And it is, because to them it is urgent. It is also important to them. Mm-hmm. But it requires me as the leader of the country to actually be able to distinguish between what is urgent merely because somebody says it is urgent, and what is important for the long-term benefit of the country. So I could spend my day, for example, taking every phone call, responding to every text message, trying to meet everyone who says I have a meeting. And at the end of the day, I can go up to 1, 2 in the morning. I will be exhausted, and I would have accomplished nothing. And we have, therefore, to be able to say, okay, what what we elected to do, and what are the priority issues for governing a country. So we can take important things like our education system. There is a need for significant reform in the education system because we appreciate that when it comes to youth unemployment, it leads to high youth unemployment. There's significant mismatch between what is required in the economy, the job skills, the job set, and what people are coming out with. There is oftentimes significant frustration from the business community. And if you have youth unemployment, then you have youth poverty. Youth poverty is going to lead to social issues, dysfunction, potential for crime, etc., instability in the society, etc., etc. So that is important. So it means we have to have the discipline to carve out the time to talk, to find the public policy, to find the resources to actually go and change the education system. Because if we do this, we are changing Grenada from a long-term perspective. So if 10 years from now, we don't have technical schools, we don't have vocational schools, we continue to have high rates of unemployment, we continue to have to import labor to do tiling and plumbing and electrician and erecting windows and doors, then we would have failed in addressing what is important. But I might have been a good politician because everybody wants to have access to me, have access to me. Everybody wants to speak to me, can speak to me. Everybody wants to meet me socially, can meet me socially, can take a picture. But if in 10 years, after doing all of that, the education system is exactly what it is today, then we would have failed. And unfortunately, in our societies, we've had too much of the politics, which is the distracting, the urgent, and very little of the governance, very little of the important, very little of where we are going. So it is finding the balance because obviously you are doing it for the people. So if you come up with the great education policy, you're implementing it, but then you're not there to explain to the people, you're not there to take questions from them, you're not there to make sure there's stakeholder buy-in and engagement, that you also will be successful but fail in another way because the policies might be great, but then they don't see you, they don't hear you, they feel no connection or relationship with you. So a sweet talker comes along, they vote you out, and they put the sweet talker in office, who then continues the politics, but no governance. So that is really the balancing act that we have to do, guided, I think, by a couple of things. The mandate, which is the manifesto, things like the National Sustainable Development Plan, because that was done nationally, things like Vision 75, and also paying attention to the world, because you can't live in a bubble. If technology is becoming obsolete, you can't continue using obsolete technology because there's been nobody to support the technology, there's nobody to provide the hardware, and then effectively you'd be left behind. So when you see things like AI, you have to pay attention to it. You have to recognize that you have to adopt new ways of learning, you have to adopt new knowledge, you have to make sure the education system is reflecting that. If you don't do that, then again, you'll be in trouble. So whether it's on the energy front, whether it's on the health front, whether it's even the way in which education is delivered, you have to pay attention to those things because you could be left behind quite easily. So it's not easy, but I guess I'm just giving the broader context. You have to be part of the regional international community. You have to have your own values as to what is right and what is not right. You have to have a plan, and then you have to try and implement the plan.
The question was on prioritizing. You all over the place trying to tick box. She didn't ask about your achievements. We know the pension basically is the only achievement of this NDC administration. The retroactive pension, so to speak, there was no, and a pension was being paid before, pension will be paid after, they will continue to pay, right? So you concentrated on ticking box, and so you pelt Project Polaris in there. Where are we building this hospital, Papa? I mean, what you did was deceptive. You run in, you turn sword, and nothing happened. I mean, look, I can give you a sneak peek on the screen. If you look there, what you see, vast area, bushes growing back and quickly too. Nothing is being done. There's no one on site. So you don't have a hospital. You don't have a hospital. Stop using the hospital to take taxes. And he said, a sweet talker comes along. You talk so much that you're even talking on your own self. You're the sweet talker that came along. And so the people voted out the former administration. for pie in the sky talks. The pies are still in the sky. In that same the Prime Minister, was asked about the global challenges that are affecting inflation, of course, our cost of living, and this is what he had to say.
regarding the ongoing war, which will definitely affect the cost of living.
Thank you, Joanna. It's not intent to take. We have already taken those measures. So we can start with what is perhaps the most significant input that impacts the cost of living, which is the cost of energy and primarily the cost of fuel. Since this administration got into office, we came into office coming out of COVID, which had brought significant disruption to the world economy. And there was significant logistics, transportation issues arising from COVID, significant undersupply of almost every type of goods and services. Freight cost was off the chain, as people would say. And in a sense, the Iran-US-Israel war has created a similar impact. And as small developing countries, we have shocks all the time, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's wars, whether it's geopolitical tensions. So we've built in resilience mechanisms into our fiscal and economic policy. So we have a standing policy that this government adopted that says, for instance, once the cost of fuel reaches $17 or above at the cost at the pump, we will subsidize it and cap it. So it means, as it stands now, the cost of fuel is significantly over $17 a gallon. And the government has capped it, which means you are paying at the pump the $17. LPG cooking gas, both the 100-pound cylinder and the 40-pound cylinder. The 40-pound cylinder has been permanently capped at $40, and it has been that way for a significant period of time. If we didn't cap it, it would probably cost almost double for a 40-pound cylinder of cooking gas, which is what the average Canadian uses to cook, to be able to create food. So when we talk about the cost of living and impact on food, that is one significant issue. The fuel you need to prepare your food is subsidized by more than 50% currently by the government. Initially, we did not cap the 100-pound cylinder, but the rise in the 100-pound cylinder was astronomical as well. And so we've gotten to the point where we've capped it as well, so that if it goes, I think, over $300, and that is still a significant increase that has already happened, we will pay the difference. So I'm pointing that out because fuel, in the form of the ability to cook your food, the ability to drive your vehicle, and then the cost of the fuel that Grenlec uses to produce the energy is one of the significant things. We've actually had a standing subsidization policy in place for persons who consume less than 99 kilowatt hours, where the government pays $10 towards the electricity bill. So there's a permanent rebate there. We've had in place, for example, with the bus owners, because they wanted an increase. And I've said to them, I understand why they want an increase. They have not had an increase for, I think, over 15 years in the cost of transportation. They've argued quite persuasively that parts have gone up, fuel prices have gone up, brakes have gone up, and they're the only ones who haven't gotten an increase. And we've said, we hear you, we understand, but transportation is a public good. And we recognize that if we pass on those costs to the public, again, the cost of living, the impact, particularly for school children and workers on so would be negative and would impact your own business because people may not even be able to afford the transportation. So we've discussed with them. We've said we will give you concessions on parts. We said we will give you rebates on gasoline. It was initially for a one-year period. I met with the PSN Transportation today. We've agreed to bring back the submission to Cabinet to continue the rebate on the fuel. And bearing in mind, we are capping the cost of the fuel as it stands right now. So we are already paying for the partly for the fuel that bus drivers use to transport the public, and we will go back to get rebate on parts and rebate on concessions and so on. So these are just simple examples of how we are actually already dealing with mitigating the cost of living for persons. But I want to emphasize this. The cost of living is the importation of inflation. So if you import goods that you don't produce, you have no control over the price. So you become a price taker, which means you take the inflation. There are significant things we could do to substitute the importation of food. Meat is a perfect example. Goat, sheep, pig, rabbit, you name it, we can produce those things in our backyards, right? And the Ministry of Agriculture has taken significant steps to address livestock production in Grenada. We don't want to eat ground provisions. We want pasta and wheat, right? And rice. All of those things are important. And all of them are actually quite expensive because they are commercial projects that has to be produced in large quantities. Take wheat, for example. When you had the Ukraine war, the price of wheat went up. Nothing is wrong with cassava, sweet potato, ripe plantain, bulgur, dasheen,
And we're growing our
callaloo,
own potatoes now.
corn, green peas, and we have, oh, I forgot it, the big one. We're growing white potatoes now, right? So we can grow. And I'm not even talking here, and I'm talking here at the individual level, because the person is asking it. We can grow a significant portion of the basic staple food, the vegetables. We can grow it, right? So even if it was not being done on a large commercial scale, each of us in our backyards, because the land hasn't disappeared in Grenada, can grow a lot of the food that we need. And then we ain't talking about fishing yet. You can still catch crayfish in the river, right? A lot of us don't eat the fish that our fishermen catch. So it's important for us to emphasize that when it comes to food, a lot of the food can be produced even at a small scale and consumed in Grenada. A lot of our spices, we go and buy seasoning in the supermarket that is imported and made in Mexico and all these places. Every type of seasoning could be grown, right? We could pickle the cucumbers. We can dry the tomatoes. There are lots of things. But again, it's a food technology. It's also changing how we prepare our food, how we preserve our food. So a lot of it is within our control. And we can spend a lot of less money on importing food and on growing our own food. So I know it was about the government, but I think it's important for us to also take personal responsibility for how much money we spend on imported food and how much imported food we consume.
All right. Again, you are viewing DMs with
Cost of energy / fuel. The former administration capped the fuel at the pumps at $15. The Prime Minister is sitting there and saying, once the fuel reaches $70, we will cap it. It was capped at 15. You removed it, right? So that's $2 extra on each gallon of gas. It adds up. So don't act as though first time in our lifetime and we are doing this to help the people. Once it reaches $17, we would cap it at 17. You remove the $15. I don't understand if you don't understand that $17 is more than $15. Now, if you say we kept it at 13, then I could understand because it was 15. Right? So this $17 that you boasting about and having a jolly good time with, thank you, but we were doing much better before, right? There is VAT on freight. So yes, things are being imported. In the meantime, while we plant and wait to harvest, remove the VAT on freight. I know you all tried it when you all came in, but it only benefited the big ones. Your friends benefited from it. It did not trickle down to the ordinary man. Get it done properly. Get somebody to help you all and get it done properly, right? Now, secondly, there's no 40-pound cylinder. It's 20 pounds. And you know what is worse? The hostesses. She sat there and did not think it necessary to correct the prime minister, who may not even know that it's 20 pounds, right? It's a hell of a thing when you're making up stories, though. The 20-pound cylinder, that was capped about 15 years ago when the Tillman Thomas NDC administration was in office between 2008 and 2013, right? Then the NNP came into office, the Keith Mitchell administration, Dr. Keith Mitchell administration, And they left it on for the decade that they've been in office, from 2013 to 2018 to 2022, right? 10 years. And then you came into office. It's been like that since Tillman Thomas was there 15 years ago. So kind of don't give the impression, people who are unaware, the young ones, well, the way you speak it is as if you are responsible for the $40 cap on the 20 pound. It's 20 pounds, sir, not 40 pounds. 20-pound cylinder. Now let's talk about the pound cylinders. Now Simon Says has been begging for a cap on that size because it's been rising, and it's been rising fast and hard, right? It got to $350 last month. So you know you go from the 18th of one month to the 18th of the next month, right? So we've been saying to you all that not everybody who have a 100-pound cylinder is rich, is wealthy. Lots of persons have it for convenience, right? Not having to go to the corner store every week, every other week. Because of what they do, they use gas a lot. They have the little small businesses. Some persons get it for their elderly parents, so that everybody, you don't have, you have to go to get the 20 pound. So we were asking for that, right? Well, I'm pleased to announce, according to the Prime Minister on the MDPM, in an extempo, he capped it at $300. Now, $300 is still a lot. We take what we get, right? But this thing happened, it was an extempo. And I'll tell you why it was an extempo. I mean, uh, Gypsy and them have nothing on you, Maybe you thought then and there that you should cap the 100-pound cylinder. So in April, your release from the Ministry of Finance, April to May, April 18 to May 18, it's on there for $350. You capped the pumps, the gas at the pumps at 17, and it's on there as well. Why wasn't it on there? Why didn't it say 100-pound cylinder, $300? So the suppliers, up to the day you saying that, the afternoon, the evening, you said it, that day, gas was sold at $350 the day before. I have testimonies of persons who paid for the month 18th April to now pay $350. It sounds good that you cap the cylinder. Who you tell? Your cabinet know that? The suppliers know that? Hmm? Your government said we had to pay $350. It was on the release. Don't do that now. Come on, don't do that. So we will be happy if from the 18th, depending on how much it costs, from the 18th of May to June, the 18th of June, that it's capped at 300. You do better than that. You could do better than that. But we'll take that for now, right? We'll take that for now. Now let's talk Grenlec. So we're talking fuel, because That's all you seem to be able to give us a break on, fuel. When you took office in June of 2022, the former administration had cushions on the electricity bill. Cushions with a S. Cushions to ease the rise in the cost of electricity. All government taxes, all the VAT, all government taxes was removed. And there was a 25% decrease on the non-fuel charge across the board. And when I say across the board, everybody, all and sundry, rich, poor, in between, young, old, middle-aged, every household experienced that 25% decrease on the non-fuel charges, right? You came in a matter of weeks, you reinstated all of the taxes, and the 25% decrease on the non-fuel charges, you removed it. And then you come with a so-called $10, and only in the last budget, 2026 budget, a $10 deduction up to what? 99 kilowatts or less. So to some people, $10 deduction, right? I mean, are you serious right now? The poor people of this country. You know what you said? The shareholders need their money. We are all shareholders. Are you forgetting that we are all shareholders and not just the few big shots in there? We are all shareholders. So you removed all of that. Added to that, you put tax on VAT. You did not include flour, rice, pasta, and meats in the basket. You taxed water. So I guess some parents who can't afford the milk can't even make a little sweet water with a little leaf, a little soursop leaf or whatever for their kids. Black sage, bay leaf, water, and a little brown sugar there. Can't even afford that for their kids. And in this going into this fourth year, you have to be desperate to be still adding VAT for people. No, you come with digital VAT, digital tax. 4 or 5 months into or from the last budget, and with election in the air. If that's not desperation, I don't know what is. You are broke. You need the money. But you have the money. You have money. You've been getting money. But it's for bribing people to vote, paying people. I'll give you anything you want. You want. Going into the constituencies, yes. I'm telling people they'll give them anything they want. So where's that money coming from? Because NDC is not a party with money. NDC broke. I know that. So when you get money, Is that why you come back to Grenada in jets? You don't when you go to Africa? Hmm? Just a question. Just asking. Now, recently, Cinti daughter, when asked basically the same question about the cushioning for the people with this rise in inflation, he had a whole different string of things that she said her government did to cushion the effects of the rising of cost of living. But well, you all didn't discuss this before. I could tell that. And even after she gave us a whole list, y'all didn't talk about it in Parliament and say, okay, well, we go stick to that. Because all you come with is fuel. That's the only thing you could help us with. We say fuel, most things people use fuel. Most things people use fuel. So if you give fuel, then you get cushion and everything else. I like you. If I say I like you, I lie. Right? But here is Cinti daughter on the string of things that her government supposedly did. I mean, since they came into office day one, when inflation wasn't that bad. Let's hear Cinti daughter.
I would like to know, is there any measures being considered to combat the high cost of living of goods and services in Grenada?
That one would perhaps be more for the Ministry of Finance, but as representative of the government here and the Cabinet of Grenada, I would say yes, already we have in place as of 2024, we zero rated over 20 essential items, including grocery, foodstuff, and toiletries and sanitary items. We implemented $10 discount on electricity bills below a certain quantity of kilowatt usage. I think it's 90. I'm speaking from memory now. We have maintained and subsidized the price of cooking gas, the 40-pound cylinder. We have, to ease the burden on parents, we have instituted the free meals program in school so that parents do not necessarily have to pack a lunch kit every day to send their children to school. They get the meal free, and before there used to be a fee charged for the meals in school. We removed that fee. We also removed the tuition fee, $850 or so for people going to NULO, TAMCC and NULO. So all of these cumulatively were meant to ease the cost of living for people. And together with all of those things, our ministry, led by our ministry, the government increased the minimum wage. So we give you all these breaks in terms of the cost of goods and services that you regularly consume, including for sustenance and education. And at the same time, we increased the minimum wage. And at the Division of Labor, I must say, we were quite rigorous in ensuring that the new minimum wages were complied with. I think we have pretty much settled down. It was a little rugged in the first year, but we have pretty much settled down, and we have, excuse me, we have all employers now complying with the new minimum wage. And of course, in the last 3 years, we had salary increases for the period 2022 to 2026, and some fringe benefits that the the union themselves, then President Grimes himself said is the best fringe benefit package ever for public workers and similarly for teachers. And now we enter into a new period where we've maintained those benefits and also the general rate of salary increases. So from our end, we are doing as much as we can to ease the burden. But let us be realistic in Grenada, given the state of global affairs. We have the war between Russia and Ukraine that remain sustained over the last 5 or so years, that affected significantly the cost of goods and services and imports in Grenada. We now have a new war.
So she lied. But we knew that, right? We talked about that when we played it a couple of weeks ago. I called it. I knew she was extemporing. But give her that. She was able to pull that card because she wasn't, she said so herself, she wasn't expecting a question like that. She's not the one to answer a question like that. So what she should have done was to shut up. But she decided she's going to lie to us. She decides she's going to try and pull wool over our eyes and deceive us, and yet another time, right? And let me tell you guys, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get worse. They're going to continue to lie blatantly to our faces because it's desperation time, and a desperate man will grab at a straw going down. And these are desperate times for desperate measures. So they would continue to tell the lies. And it's you that have to listen, pay attention, so you'd be able to pick the lies when you hear them, right? Yeah. Let's talk to Ron a little bit quickly before we get into the meat of the matter. In an interview on GBN talk show, to the point, when asked about the Project Polaris, this is what Ron Redhead, as PRO of the National Democratic Congress, had to say.
Questions continue to circulate about Project Polaris, with some members of the public pointing to limited visible work at the Hopevale site. However, NDC Public Relations Officer Ron Redhead, appearing on GBN's To The Point program, says the project itself has already started.
I want to make it absolutely clear. The project itself has commenced. All right. This is the first phase, the initial phase where we have turned the sod, where they are continuing to do work, and in due course they will give further updates and give the updates in accordance to when phases are accomplished, etc. So rest assured, sod was turned. There is a duration, which is very important in any project life cycle that you're dealing with. The expectation is by 2029 we will be opening the doors of the new research hospital.
Project Polaris is planned as a climate-resilient 250-bed smart hospital within the 84-acre Hopevale Medical City, forming part of the government's Vision 75 development agenda. It is expected to replace the existing St. George's General Hospital and expand access to specialist care, emergency services, surgery and material and neonatal services across Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. On funding, Redhead says approximately $180 million has been secured out of an estimated $250 million, with the remaining funds still to be identified.
There are many options that are being explored. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and the project sponsor have all spoken to the intricate process that was utilized to be able to raise the funds, meaning they are the best terms and conditions in Grenada's recent history. So at this point, we have secured enough to begin construction. And then when we get to the point where now you're expanding the services, adding the additional stuff, adding the hotel or overnight rooms, etc., then additional funding will be required. But there's a process that the team will follow.
Environmental concerns have also been raised due to flooding in the area. Redhead confirmed an environmental impact assessment has been completed, though he did not provide details at the time of the interview.
Because clearly we do not have any major concern at this point outside of the ravine.
Yeah.
That was running there, or the drain, however people may want to class it. Outside of that, that is of some grave concern. As I said, the number one issue in that general area is the question of flooding.
While concerns remain, officials maintain that Project Polaris is progressing as part of the country's long-term health and development strategy. Eugenia Peters, GBN News.
And so the flooding, the swamp, is not of a concern enough for you, Ron Reddit. Talk to contractors and engineers and so, because it is a grave concern. That's not where Uncle Tilly was going to put the hospital. He wasn't going to put it in the swamp. He wasn't going to put it in the swamp. He was buying lands on the other side, where the medical city is. That's what the NDC, the Tillman Thomas NDC, had planned to purchase lands for the new teaching hospital, right? And to say, what? In 3 years, we moving in? Well, we started counting since Ms. Saint Bernard told us that in the Wester Hall Secondary School. We counted 3 years. And to put the sword turning is as a phase is deceptive. Nothing is happening. What you said? Let's make it absolute clear. The project has started. Where and when? What you did was turn sword to guide the people, get people all excited. And then they boil down as Baji, because nothing is happening. Right now, there should be construction going on. After you turn sword, it's let's go. You did all your testing. And the more you all talk, the more you all put your foot in your mouth. But he said, this is the initial stage where we clear. We've turned the sword where they are continuing to do work. There's no work going on there. So that's why y'all put up the gates. Y'all put up the gates to block us out and to pretend that things are happening behind the high fence and gates that you put up there now. If you look on the screen, you'd see nothing happening. Nothing, absolutely nothing. No one there. I don't even think I got an ant bite. There's no ants inside there. Right? But when you come in and telling us about they said you get about the different phases, bring the 3D glasses for us as well. Walk with some for us. Why is it so easy for you people to lie to the nation? Why? On Tuesday, the 5th May 2026, civil society groupings met with the supervisor of election, Mr. Arthur Pear, and one other member of staff, his IT specialist, Mr. Millet. I'll share with you the civil society's report on the procurement of the new voter registration system. According to the Representation of the People's Act, Section 8, there is hereby established for the purposes of registration and in accordance with the provisions of the Act, a single, uniform, non-discriminatory, centralized, interactive, computerized voter registration system, which shall be administered and maintained by the supervisor of elections in accordance with the provisions of this act and a part of the first schedule. On the 4th of June 2025, a procurement notice requesting bids to design, supply, and install a new voters registration system for the Parliamentary Elections Office in Grenada was published in a local newspaper and the Government Gazette. According to the notice, the initiative is grounded in the legislative and regulatory framework governing electoral processes, cybersecurity, electronic transaction legislation, and the data privacy policies, alignment with OECS and the CARICOM digital ID development goals. Why are we concerned? This description is in line with Grenada's eGRIP project, the eGRIP Electronic Government Regional Integration, a World Bank funded OECS initiative. Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica was designed to modernize government ICT systems. Its main goal was to move government services away from paper and outdated technology and into a more digital, efficient, and secure environment. Instead of each ministry or department working separately, eGRIP helped build shared system so government information could flow more smoothly and services could be delivered faster. A big part of eGRIP focused on improving the civil registry, identity information, and basic digital tools that government agency relied on. This include things like secure databases, authentication systems, and a technical backbone that allows different government platforms to talk to each other. While these upgrades didn't create a voter registration system, they created the foundation that any new voter registration system would need to connect to. While the eGRIP project has concluded, we need to pay attention to the digital government for resilient project, which is seemingly building on what eGRIP started. Interestingly, the Parliamentary Elections Office made no public announcement about who was awarded the contract, and for months there was silence from the supervisor of elections. When contacted, the supervisor of elections, Otto Pear, informed the CSOs that the contract was awarded to a company, CompuMax. Our research showed that the company had no digital footprints nor experience in the prerequisite areas. We later learned at a meeting on the 5th of May 2026 with the supervisor of elections that CompuMax was fronting for another company, CardLogix. Why was this not disclosed? Who is CardLogix? Research shows that CardLogix Corporation was founded in 1998 in California, USA. Some businesses intelligence database lists an earlier precursor entity dating to 1994, but the company began operating under the CardLogix name in 1998, which is the date consistently used in the industry. CardLogix was founded by Sebastian K. King, who was served as founder or president, CEO, director, because it's a sole director there. He is the primary and most consistently listed executive associated with the company since inception. Other early technical leadership includes Tom Hope, senior engineer and the product development lead in the detailed cyber news interview. Tom Hope explains that CADlogics began in 1994 with a majestic stripe patient and shifted to smart card production in 1998. He stated that they developed their own most card. So after early Java card limitations and they oversee sales of smart card systems, biometric enrollment devices, and SDKs. CADlogic states that it has shaped smart card products to over 43 countries worldwide. Additionally, then smart card programming page repeats that they have manufactured and personalized cards for institutions in these countries. CADlogics has developed equipment for Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, and Europe. But only Jordan and the US are explicitly named in their own material. A deep dive into CADlogics revealed that it may be a front company for US electoral base data collection and surveillance with the express purpose for direct financial system control and president monitoring for artificial intelligence, AI agents, and the introduction of digital identifications and central bank digital currency, including medical control overreach. The question is, does the local Grenadian company know who they're jumping into bed with? Also, very important, follow the money. Who paid whom for this to get such approval? In April 2020, the 22nd of April 2025, and then again on the 9th of May 2025, the CSOs met with the supervisor of election, and the worry was the same as it is today. That is 1 year ago. And the fact that we are out of time for the new system and the old system is not reliable. That's the worry. We're out of time for the new system, and the old system, it's very unreliable. Folks, my concern is, and I'm very concerned, and persons that was at that meeting are very concerned, the state of the readiness of the electoral office for the next general election. 1 year ago, I was very concerned, and to date, we have not yet purchased a new system. And you remember I came to you with that concern. And then they were saying it was too late. This is 1 year later, and the new system is yet to be purchased. When the request for bids was sent out, only one company, and that was the Compumax company, submitted. So they put out another request. This time, 3 companies bid it, but the Compumax company won the bid. Now, we have an agreement, or the company, this Compumax company that the electoral office is dealing with, is out of the US. However, there is a subsidiary here in Grenada. They couldn't answer why the US company is the one we're dealing with, right? As I told you before, there are no footprints of digital services from that company. The committee set up to deal with this, the purchasing of the new system and all of that. They took 7 months to get to this point, this stage. 7 months it took them. Why the delay? And that is the wonder, the bother of some people. Why the delay? Then the information was passed on to the Attorney General, the Attorney General's office. And that has been there for 4 weeks to date. According to the Office of the Supervisor of Elections, a new system now will not be ready for the next election, even if the election is called in 2027. That is, if they go right on to the wire. So we are stuck with the old 3M system that can break down anytime and has broken down 6 times in the near future, in the last few months. And to me, that's a very concerning thing and makes me very uncomfortable and make you uncomfortable as well. Unsettling, to say the least. There were even utterances of extension of the time in office. Because if you go into an election and we close an election and the old machine break down with 90,000 voter registrations inside there, that's what's there, 90,000. We can call an election. But there are a lot of, this is not a 1, 2, 3 thing with this extension, but I'm telling you that even that was mentioned at the meeting, right? We heard a lot of let us hope that all goes well. So we are going to go into, or trying to go into an election on hope, right? This is what we are hoping. So I guess 10 fingers crossed, 10 toes crossed, right? If all goes well. But the reality is, the old system can break down anytime. And I asked, I said, so we can be sitting here, and by the time the meeting is over, the 3M's old system, we can hear that it's broken down. And the answer was yes. So we can go to bed the night before the elections and wake the next morning, getting ready to go and vote, and we hear that the system is broken down. Yes. There were talks about the new system. And that is, as we say, as I told you, it took 7 months to get to the AG office, and now it's there for already 4 weeks, right? And nothing yet. So they were talking about the new system, depending on how soon it gets here, then they can set it up and start to register the new voters on the new system, which is not making sense, right? Because so then if we go into an election, if it breaks down with the 90,000 registered voters, then they can use that old system and the new system with persons who are registering now. But that is not something that they're saying for sure, because of course there's no sign that there's nothing in place yet to order the new system, because it's with the Attorney General office and they have it there for 4 weeks already, right? Folks, this is not a joke. This is serious matter. What was supposed to happen anytime you need a new system? Because remember, we're not running parallel lists. There's supposed to be one list. Right after the 2022 elections, what should have happened is that the administration immediately purchase a new system, because all of us who are on the old system have to re-register, once this new system come into place, right? That is why it cannot be done before the elections. If it was just to do the new ones, and depending on how soon they purchase it, then that could have worked, right? However, it seems like there's no urgency in purchasing the new system. 1 year ago, when we were with the supervisor of election, not much happened. Since then, not much more happened. And you can see the worry in the eyes of even the staff. You can see that worry in their eyes. The question coming from the electoral office, and I was told to ask the question, why haven't the electoral office gotten the monies for the new system? What's keeping it? What's keeping it? You bought 15 pickup trucks before you purchased a new electoral system. One of them just mashed up yesterday. Yeah, look at it. This St. Patrick East pickup truck that comes to St. George's every day to take the minister to work had to be towed away. And the accident was on Lucas Street, the St. Patrick, early morning. I think between 7 and 8 o'clock. What is it doing on Lucas Street? But we purchased 15 vehicles and we don't have an electoral system. We don't have a new system of the electoral office. The Prime Minister bought himself a brand new BMW, $200,000. That could go towards that. The equipment, the system is in the millions. And they were going to order it. Well, they had, along with the system, they were ordering cards, and they were ordering some like 200 cards so that, we have cards for the next few years and not have to worry about ordering. And they couldn't afford it because the allocation in the last budget, they had surpassed that. So they had to remove. They then ended up ordering just 40 cards, putting all 40 cards in the order that went to the Cinti daughter, right? The AG's office, because they couldn't afford, right? But we can afford everything else. The CARICOM roundabout, I noticed it getting another facelift again. For the rest of our lives, we'll be scraping and revarnishing. What are we doing with the CARICOM roundabout? We don't have an electoral system. We thought it was necessary to turn sword for Project Polaris, knowing that we're not ready for turning sword, because after turning sword comes construction. We know we wasn't ready. And I am almost certain we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the ground there for that sword turning ceremony, if not millions. So, as I said, I am just asking on behalf of the workers, why aren't you, the government of Grenada, spending the monies to purchase the new system? The travel continues, first class, private jets, large entourage, fun and frolic, and we need a new electoral system. Folks, this is serious. And I ask of you, everybody, everyone, pay attention. And and that's what the young lady was asking the Prime Minister about his priorities. And health is another one that always gets left by the wayside. Someone sent me a plate which suggests and said that was the breakfast in the maternity ward. Just look at that. Pay attention to that. Breakfast in the maternity ward at the General Hospital as we speak. And that is what we need. Folks, let's move on. Let's move on. Because if Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell was as protective of the people's business as he was of some of his members of cabinet, his nation builders, friends, and colleagues, the young so-called supporters and the surrogates of the NDC and their corrupt practices, Grenada would be in a much better place today. Just listen to this clip of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and what he thinks about the corruption.
Would things like that worry you in terms of the optics politically? I mean,
No, I think
we are as transparent.
there are a bunch of people now with too much
Time on their hands trying to get their job back because of corruption issues.
we are as transparent a government, I think, as Grenada has seen in my lifetime, for sure. And I think if any issues arises and there's credible evidence of stuff, as a Prime Minister, I'm prepared to deal with it. But what I will not...
Did you look into the lotto matter, though?
Yes, I looked at...
Because I looked into it, and there seemed to have been a bit of credibility to some of the issues.
I looked into the issue, and I just said to you, which is why I talked about how you handle conflicts in terms of what the legislation says and what has to happen, right? So I'm saying when people just simply make spurious allegations and come up with all kinds of fanciful stuff, you have to be careful that you don't allow people to draw you in and to make decisions as if you are Jesus Christ and he who is the third sin cast the first stone. I'm saying the very nature of our laws recognize that you have situations where someone who serves on a board may have their firm or their business and so on bidding for work that a particular entity is offering. And there's a process and procedure that has to be followed. So I'm saying if someone makes, and you're saying, do I look into the lotto thing simply because I'm hearing media allegations? If someone makes a credible accusation, we will obviously investigate it and then we make necessary decisions that has to be made. But too often, and I think the National Democratic Congress government in the past was allowed itself to be hoodwinked into trying to go after its own and into trying to punish its own and to hold itself at that standard that's almost impossible. When other people are doing all kind of things left, right, and center and getting away with it. So I'm saying we are living in a society where nobody's perfect. And we have to be careful that we don't try and hold people in public office to a perfect standard and then try to hold them at that.
It wasn't a first allegation. She was saying to you, Prime Minister, that she looked into it and saw credible information of the corruption. That's what she said. Now, since 2024, the story broke of the corruption inside the National Lottery Authority. The blatant corruption between their chairman of the board of the director, William Batiste, and his girlfriend, the managing director of the NLA, Cindy Henry, whom William Batiste hired himself. Normally, it's the duty of the entire board. He brought her in and put her down himself. And the board, the rest of the board, did not question it. If they questioned it, it was behind closed door, because we never heard of it, right? Everything just went on, right? William Batiste and Cindy Henry, so that's the chairman of the board and the managing director of the authority, they were the only two signatories on the NLA's account and treated it like their personal account. Of course, they love it. Peloton. Where we going tomorrow? What we going to do? What we signing off on? Let's write a check for. Right? So they bought furniture, $200,000 worth. Mr. Batiste produced a check of invoice to Catwills, his company, that was died and risen after the 2022 election, right? To $200,000. The Victoria Park renovations in St. Andrew, in Grenville, St. Andrew. The project cost $275,000. The overruns was $295,000. Signed, sealed, and delivered, the checks, because William Batiste took on his own, as a matter of fact, and renovated the park without the okay from the ministries responsible, and that would have been the Ministry of Infrastructure, where the Prime Minister is the minister, and the Ministry of Sports, where Ron Redhead at the time was the minister, right? Then there was the Skills Training Center on Scott Street, another $200,000. Still paying rent. There was never skills training taking place in there. It never happened. And we're talking almost 3 years and counting. Never happened, right? They're paying a monthly rent. They're paying a facilitator who they brought here from Canada, Montreal, to facilitate the training. So they have to pay her. So they're paying her monthly. And she already collected a $70,000 for preliminary proposal, for a preliminary proposal. And that is still just a proposal. But she collected $70,000 for that. I'm not sure how much she's getting monthly for the facilitating of no one. The trips abroad, like the one to France on the 18th of October, 2024. The manager, Cindy Henry, and her boyfriend, William Batiste, traveled to France to a one-day meeting. They honeymooned for 2 weeks, right? Returned on the 1st of November, 2024. All expenses paid by the National Lottery Authority, $36,000 from the NLA coffers, $18,000 each. But 2 weeks before that, they both went to the USA to another meeting, their second such for the year 2024, costing the NLA $50,000 each trip. Right around then, in October, an invoice in excess of $100,000 came from Catwill Stationery for stationery to the NLA. According to the invoice, monies owing to the company for stationery. There were many invoices, like ones for $68,000, $100,000, $150,000. The chairman, William Batiste, is the owner of Catwill Stationery. The purchase of the commercial building on Melville Street, St. George's, against the wishes of the minister, William Batiste and Cindy Henry purchased a building for the NLA. The staff was told that the company bought the building and that the office, their main headquarters on the Carenage, will be relocated there in the first quarter of 2024. 3 years later, we're in the first quarter of 2026. 3 years later, the National Lottery Authority office is still on the carronage. We are in the first quarter of 2026. Rent was collected and sent to Grenville, to the law firm of Teddy St. Louis, the chief of staff of the Prime Minister. Common Sense was called on the chief of staff several times to come forward and deny or accept the allegations and explain why the rent collected was sent to his office in St. Andrew. My concern is, if the rent was collected by the office of the chief of staff, who owns the building? A building the NLA purchased, they borrowed $11,550,000 from Cooperative Bank for the acquisition and repairs of the building on Melville Street. It is on the corner of Melville and St. John Street. William Batiste and Cindy Henry are the signatories on the mortgage document. In the NLA, if the NLA is paying the mortgage, why was the rent, or is the rent collected and delivered in the chief of staff's attorney, Teddy St. Louis' office in St. Andrew? Why is it once monies is involved, the same names come up, the same companies, the same firms shoot up? It's like follow the money, right? Now, after all that, we were told, or it was rumored, that William Batiste tendered his resignation after being given a 24-hour ultimatum by the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell. Some said the NLA was audited and that there were alarming findings. And Batiste was told that the government cannot go into an election with him at the helm. Reasons cited, we don't know. We were never told. Mounting corruption allegations, including claims by William Batiste, chairman of the NLA, board, funneled NLA funds to his private company, Catwill Stationery Services, through contacts for furniture and office supplies, amongst other things. Now, after his cup was full and overflowing, with no official government or NLA press release or press conference confirming the resignation and its reason, the resignations happened amid broader calls for an NLA probe with the Public Accounts Committee, headed by His Majesty's Opposition Leader, Honorable Emmeline Pierre, moving to request an audit in late March 2026. So the Public Accounts Committee, headed by Honorable Emmeline Pierre, the leader of the opposition, they have asked and requested an audit, and that was in late March 2026. Let's hear the former minister who got in the middle of that controversy with this corruption, who spoke of the improprieties, the financial improprieties to the Prime Minister and his cabinet, and was turned down. In fact, most people believe that is why he was fired. We were never told, so we cannot say yes, it was, but it all happened. It all came down around the same time. Let's hear former Minister Jonathan Lecret.
Can you articulate or can you shed some light? I'm not too sure how much you can share. You were just saying here that there were financial improprieties. What were some examples of those financial improprieties that the accounting team, the financial team with the Lotteries Authority shared?
There were large sums of money being paid to a particular organization. And that particular organization was receiving those sums of money for the procurement to investigate the matter. Him and the learned Attorney General, and he insisted. I trusted that the Prime Minister was going to investigate the matter and get back to me with feedback as it relates to their findings. But that did not happen. And weeks passed, and I remember sending 2 very cordial emails to the Prime Minister, just reminding him that we said that we were going to have a sit-down meeting with the Board of Directors of the National Lotteries Authority to ascertain whether or not they are in the know as to what is happening as it relates to my findings. And the questions that I have re the building out of these skills training centers. I am still waiting for a response from these 2 emails. Beryl came first week of July, and that was indeed an opportunity to forget that something was happening at the National Lotteries Authority that needed to be addressed. Yes? And I allowed them the space to be able to take care of Carriacou and PT Martinique, and also to look after our residents in St. Patrick as well as St. Andrew. And around the 3rd week of July, I did motion to the Prime Minister after a cabinet meeting that I would like to just have a brief chat with him, and he obliged. And we spoke, and I said, Prime Minister, is there going to be a time? I know that, we've gone to Carriacou, we've done assessments, etc. And we're now in the recovery and resilience stage in terms of putting preparations in place for recovery and resilience of Carriacou. Is there a time that we are going to be able to address the issue that I raised re the National Lotteries Authority? I do not know if the Honorable Prime Minister felt that I was prying too much, or maybe he felt that this guy is not letting up on this thing. I can't say. Yes, all I know is I walked into the cabinet on the 31st of July, my appointments were revoked, and I was relieved of my duties.
That was former Minister of Sports, Jonathan Lecret, telling you of his encounter. He went to the Prime Minister and the cabinet with his findings when he became Minister of Sports and went to visit the NLA. Actually was corralled by the staff, meeting him in Supermax area, begging him to come in and have a chat with them because they wanted to show in the books. They opened their books what was happening at the NLA, right? So he had given the chairman, Mr. William Batiste, he had fired him, given him a letter. The Prime Minister had him rescind the letter. He had to take back the letter and said he would do his own investigations. And then you're saying there was no corruption, right? So Simon says, on behalf of the people of Grenada, so called for a commission of inquiry into the NLA, because all we hear is Mr. Batiste resign and he gone. What happened to all the improprieties? What happened to the money that was embezzled? We need to know. This is not just free for all. So we are calling and asking for the commission of inquiry. Amidst all the accusations the former Minister of Sports, Minister Jonathan Lacroix, brought to the Prime Minister and his cabinet documentation on Monday, June the 3rd, 2024, printed copies of evidence of financial improprieties uncovered at the NLE was presented to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his cabinet. William Batiste is a friend and colleague, nation builder colleague of the Prime Minister. So instead of him allowing Mr. Batiste to go his way with the dismissal letter he received from the minister, he had the minister take him back and then fired the minister. I'm not saying that's the reason he fired him, but he fired him because we were never told by the Prime Minister. We were just told that it was he lost confidence and trust in Mr. Jonathan Lacroix. Jonathan Lacroix, right? So he fired the minister and they left the crook inside the NLE to continue doing his wrongdoings. Right? And then after his cup was full and overflowing, he had enough. I'm sure he could tap his chest like the minister in Carriacou and say he's set for life. Right? Properties there, properties here. Catwell up and running like an international company selling everything under the sun. But I'm asking the Prime Minister, are you going to allow the same thing that happened at the Lottery Authority to happen at Gravel and Concrete? And that same individual, Mr. William Batiste, name keep coming up in the corruption at Gravel and Concrete. His name keep coming up. But let's hear Mr. Lacroix as he tells us how he presented the documents to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Grenada 2 years ago.
And in screening through the financials, I found some financial improprieties. And I went straight to the Permanent Secretary and I said, PS, we need to deal with this in a very systematic and a very diplomatic manner. And we agreed that it must be brought before the body who constituted the Board of Directors in the first place, which is the Cabinet of Grenada. So that took place on the 31st of May, that was a Friday, and I went to the Cabinet on Monday, June 3rd, with all the information that I had. And I laid it before them as it relates to what are we going to do about this particular situation.
Hexile, a company owned by Orlando Romain, advisor to the government of Grenada on ICT, and the creative special envoy ambassador for same ICT and the creative, a commissioner on the NTRC board, advisor to GIS. The company Hexile is on retainer, a monthly retainer at the National Lottery Authority. At the time, collected $17,825 monthly. That amongst other government bodies, retainers, right? One don't believe William Batiste and Cindy Henry have done all they did in isolation. That is without the knowledge and the knowledge of the board of directors. And therefore, the call for the resignation of the entire board of directors is well in place. If the board knew and did nothing, they should be fired. And if they knew and didn't do anything, they also should be fired, whether they knew or they didn't know. If they didn't know, it means they were not taking care of the business of the company. So they should be fired, right? We also called for the resignation of the managing director of the company, Cindy Henry, as she aided and abetted William Batiste in embezzlement and financial improprieties and benefited as well. Instead, Cabinet at its meeting on the 2nd of March 2026, keeping the same board, approved the appointment of the chairperson, Gail Purcell. She was the deputy chair. Approved the appointment for her to be the chair of the board for the remainder of that term. And at its meeting on the 7th April 2026, approved Ms. Fiventu as deputy chairperson, replacing Gail Purcell. Now, that you've heard there, those are not allegations. Those are facts. Yet when the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, was confronted on DM the PM podcast of the allegation, he denied it. Here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell.
Mr. Prime Minister, there are some allegations are going around. And you need to clear the air with some of the corruption we are hearing in offices with some of your, first of all, with the Burial Relief Fund, we're hearing that people are getting contracts, monies are put in their accounts, and people, they are taking all the money in their account and spend it and not finishing the work. Is that true, sir? Then second of all, we are hearing the allegation with former Senator Lacrette with the NLA corruption deal. I want you to explain some of that for us, if that is true with the NLA manager and his girlfriend. So we are asking if these things are true with the NLA deal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Have a very pleasant evening.
Thank you so much, Kola.
Well, thank you, Kola. I think my response on the National Lotteries Authority is no. And I think if anyone has evidence or proof to the contrary, then obviously this is something that they could have brought forth a long time ago. I want to make the point. The National Lotteries Authority, like many other statutory bodies, but perhaps lottery more than anything else, is outside of the central treasury, perhaps the next treasury of the state of Grenada, where everybody, from private promoters to Carnival Queen contestants, to sporting clubs, to community clubs, to people who are sick, are constantly asking for assistance in one way, shape, or the other. But the lottery business is a lottery business, and so the lottery itself also has to manage its results. And sometimes when people are told no, or are told that the lottery is unable to fund what they're requesting, they make all kinds of allegations against the board and the management and the staff of lottery, none of which is frankly fair, nor considerate. We also have to appreciate that almost all statutory bodies in Grenada, the people who serve on these boards, the directors, are doing so virtually free. The stipend that is given to them, the $300 or the $500 per meeting or per month, in many instances is inconsequential and cannot compensate them for the significant time and effort that they put into serving on behalf of the citizens of the country. So when people malign their names and say all kinds of things, that's one of the reasons why oftentimes talented people choose not to get involved in public service, because you have all kinds of foolish people who make all kinds of allegations with no proof. And if they had the proof, then present the proof. So I think that is what I would say. And then on the second issue with Hurricane Beryl, I am sure that with any government program, from time to time, you may have mistakes or you may have issues that may need addressing. But as far as I'm aware, there is no widespread corruption. There is no systematic corruption in any of these instances. There are challenges, and I've said this repeatedly, with many other contractors, because in many instances, their ability to manage the money, the ability to have the kind of financial literacy that is required is sometimes not there. Now, you could say you're not dealing with them, in which cases the homes are not going to be rebuilt because we simply don't have the capacity. And I've given these examples when we were having the financial literacy classes. If you give a contractor a fixed price contract, say $75,000 to build or $85,000 to build a Build Back Better house, and he doesn't realize that he cannot pay his workers per day, because if he pays them per day and if they're unproductive or if rain falls and they don't work and they still have to be paid, he will quickly find himself running out of money and unable to build the home, because he ought to have said, if my price is fixed, I then have to give a fixed labor price. I can't pay you per day. You then have to tell me what is the job as a carpenter. It is $10 for the entire project. What is the job of the electrician? It is $2. What is the job of the plumber? It is $3, and say that is the job. Because if you don't and you pay them per day and they tell you $1 per day and they spend 3 months on the site and you pay them that way, then you quickly run out of money and the house is not built. And in many instances, this is what has happened to a lot of the small contractors that we've tried to work with.
Can you imagine the Prime Minister of this country is there defending the corruption, defending the fraud, defending the embezzlement that was taking place at the NLA? He had the nerve to say the lottery business is the lottery business. How is that possible, sir, when the lottery is a subsidiary of the government of Grenada? Look at, we just paid, we had Character Games, the lottery paid for it. How can you say the lottery business is a lottery business? And then he spoke of no widespread corruption or systematic corruption. So the corruption has to be systematic for you to look at it. All corruption has to be systematic. And why was he fired eventually? Why did he resign eventually? I mean, this is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Early in the game, this guy was reported to the Prime Minister. It is alleged that the Prime Minister said to him, stop writing checks to yourself. I guess that's why he went on to write to the company, to Cadwells, I don't know. And just left it. Just stop writing checks to yourself. It is okay to be crooked. As a matter of fact, it's like a magnet drawn to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and the NDC. All sorts of them pop up. Who was on the run? They're back in Grenada or on some board from America, and they have to come down and they get tickets to come down to Grenada. We encouraging the corruption. This is crazy stuff. If somebody hear this person talking, they'll never think that is the prime, and they don't know, would never say that is the Prime Minister of a country. You realize he never really answered the second part of the question, you know. Of course, he went on defending. But the answer to the second part of the question is right here with the Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall.
Constituency, St. Patrick's East. How is things in the constituency, sir?
Well, a lot is happening in St. Patrick East, and in recent time I've done some interviews on how many houses that we have actually put out in the last year since burial.
Yeah.
And I must say that things have gone apace. A number of persons would have gotten a new house. In some cases, their house repairs and so on. There are 1 or 2 houses that were started and they are yet to be completed. Some of them have issues, I would tell you, because I've heard 1 or 2 cases yesterday when I was in the field that the contractor started the house and he disappeared.
Why is that happening, sir?
I don't really know, but I mean, I believe that the persons who issuing the contracts to those contractors need to basically make sure that they vet these people properly and so on. I've heard stories on the road, which I mean, I don't even want to talk about it here right now, where a guy got money and so on, he put it in an account and so on, and every now and again he goes and takes $200 from it and so on. And it doesn't appear on the person's side to be able to continue the project. So yes, we have 1 or 2 houses.
So we have a management problem there to push that.
Yes, there might be that case this one. But I want to put out a warning out to the persons who have collected government monies and did not do what they should do with it and so on, or use it for other purposes and so on. We would have the audit department audit those things, and would have the necessary step taken to make sure that you can account or you account for the monies that you were given. I know there are problems where, for example, somebody might tell you, well, this is the land and so on, and when I say we, the ministry took it as though that's a gospel, and they went and started building that house, and then realized that there was somebody coming and challenge, you're building on my land. Again, we have to be more structured, put things in place to make sure that we can verify ownership of property before we get into building those things. So yes, there might be some learning situation in the past that we have to take into consideration, where people build on people's land that was not authorized. And so we, going forward, have to make sure that all of these things are corrected. It may not be just a matter of mismanagement. It may be a matter of people not being upfront with the information they gave.
You heard him. Don't know if it's widespread or systematic, but there's corruption going on in the housing project, right? So we would continue next week with the housing project, the many housing projects, and we start from the Chinese housing project to Project 500 to MIT to. So next week we deal with the corruption in housing. In closing, to the Governor General, Dame Cecile Lagrenade, and Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, we the people is calling for a commission of inquiry, forensic auditing into the National Lottery Authority and its board of directors. Why was Mr. William Batiste made to resign? We called for the dismissal of the managing director, Cindy Henry, and the board of directors whilst the inquiry takes place. Gravel and concrete, it's a rat race taking place there. Everything vacuum bag, nobody supervising, everybody doing their own thing. We're calling for commission of inquiry or forensic auditing at the gravel and concrete as well. Everybody playing up in the people's money, and then you will say the lottery business is a lottery business. So I guess gravel and concrete business is gravel and concrete business. Board of directors of the Grenada Development Bank. This bank is the People's Bank, not the NDC Bank. The bank is barely holding its head above water. We call for forensic auditing and a commission inquiry into the board of directors of the Grenada Development. The National Organizing Committee and the government of Grenada. All the things we forget, we forget. We, the people, is yet to receive an audited report on the $22.5 million spent as promised. There was talk of missing money of $500,000 from the fund. Just we know that $500,000 was missing. Hmm? The people need forensic auditing of the National Organizing Committee and the $22.5 million allocated. Almost $1 million was spent for lighting alone, the metal work and the lights. That was taken down. We don't even know where it is. The Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, Minister Andy Williams and his ministry and his officers, Ms. Dawn Harford, Ms. Bessessa, the Permanent Secretary, Ms. Nicole Clark, the movement of monies in that ministry, widespread corruption in a systematic manner. Even the Minister of Finance said that what's going on in MIT is illegal. What are we doing? Andy Williams separately on the Cliff Road project, bribery of $115,000. He would not be on the ballot in the next election. He's owing the government of Grenada millions of dollars. And according to our constitution, he should not be in the Parliament of Grenada. And not just him, there are others in your cabinet who have contract with the government, who not supposed to borrow money from the government or have any. And not just them, them and members of their family, right? Bribery, got $100 in cash in hand, and 100,000 cash in hand, and 15,000 to restore his pickup truck, a white Isuzu pickup truck, T4254, in exchange for the Cliff Road project. The Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs and Minister Tevin Andrew for corruption and fraud. The minister said just before the election he only had $2 in his bank account. Today he's telling his staff he's set for life. Don't worry about me. I set for life. He owns expensive property in Carriacou, trucks, boats, trawlers. Huh? Minister Kirin James and the constituency office in Guave and the many missing monies from that constituency office, the allegations of the purchasing of $1 million or the purchasing of a property and building $1 million house in Maran St. John's, bought under the name of her sister. Minister of Fisheries, Minister Lennox Andrew, the accusations of owning several fishing trawlers. Kaipo, we're not forgetting Mr. Fimber Thomas, where several allegations of embezzlement of Kaipo funds have the same business inside of Kaipo and charging persons when they come there on his invoice, letterhead, in his invoice. He was removed when there was supposed to be an investigation. We heard nothing of the investigation. But all these little companies, my friends, that are popping up now, there are a few of them that I have on the investigation. If you see companies, we want to know who was responsible for making ghost companies inside Kaipo. The people are calling for a commission of inquiry and forensic auditing of these government departments, entities, and institutions, the statutory bodies. The question of the cement that came from Saudi Arabia, consigned to the company Icon, of which the chief of staff of the Prime Minister, Teddy St. Louis, is the managing director and owner of the company. 60,000 slings of cement. Why was the first entry cancelled? And why was the invoice on the second entry changed to 60% less? Isn't that fraud? So we have all kind of insider trading, fraud, corruption, and you just name it. Folks, this is a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. And remember, a better Grenada is possible. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.